Hi, I'm Mark Link. This is Mintu Turakhia. We're going to be discussing two of the late-breaking clinical trials at the Tuesday morning session that was just presented. I'm going to be presenting a discussion of the MagnaSafe trial, which is a trial of MRIs with conventional ICDs and pacemakers. This is presented by Dr. Russo. And in this trial, which was widely anticipated, there were 1,000 patients with pacemakers, 500 patients with ICDs who underwent 1.5 Tesla conventional MRIs. They received a special exclusion from CMS in order to do this, in order to get paid for this. And I really want to compliment them for carrying out this trial, which I think was well done and timely. There's been concern that the MRI would damage either the device itself or, because of the heat generated at the tissue lead interface, would cause long-lasting problems with sensing and thresholds. In this trial, the primary endpoint was death or damage to the device. There were no damages done to the 1,000 pacemakers. 6 of them had electrical resets which had to be reprogrammed afterwards. And of the 500 ICD patients, there were no deaths. One device was actually damaged by the MRI and actually had to be replaced immediately, but there were no shocks in this patient. There were also changes in sensing and thresholds that were observed in this trial. They tended to be relatively minor and tended to be short in duration, and by 3 to 6 months they tended to be gone. So in all, I was very pleased to see the results of this trial in that MRIs of 1.5 Teslas may be now allowed for people with ICDs and pacemakers. A couple provisos is that these devices had to be programmed both before and afterwards, and this is only short-term follow-up. It's and of a limited number of patients, and so I wouldn't say it's at this point anyone can get MRI, but I think at this point the risk and benefits of an MRI for patients with ICD and pacemakers can be considered, and in selected patients MRIs can be done. Dr. Turakhia.
So we also saw a very interesting late breaker that really was in a new area, which was titled Intention to Tweet, and this was a randomized trial of the use of a social media campaign by Circulation, the official journal of the AHA, and it's an evaluation on outcomes. What Caroline Fox and her team attempted to do is to determine if social media campaigns improve the reach to the audience, measured in several different ways, for a lot of the publications that come out of Circulation. In 2012, the journal launched a social media campaign, and around this, they very cleverly seized an opportunity to embed a trial into the campaign. And what they did is they randomized studies, studies that were not part of other high-profile media releases, such as late breakers themselves, and randomized them to an intervention, which is the social media campaign around them, versus not. The social media campaign consisted of 2 strategies, and they included publication links and brief updates in fairly simple language using 2 social media or social network sites. One is Facebook and the other is Twitter. The observation arm, of course, had no other interventions, and the primary outcome was essentially page views of the article itself. Now, what the study actually found is that the intervention did not increase page views at all, and it would be very easy to take away from that this is ineffective. But in fact, I think this is a great study, and we're only at the beginning of really understanding how to use social media to disseminate research and even clinical information such as guidelines. So there's a lot we learned just from the exercise. Are we getting the right people? Have we defined the audience correctly? Is the language written in a manner that appeals to people? And finally, are we actually measuring the best outcome? Is page views really the thing we should be measuring? Perhaps there are other ways to quantify the reach that using other metrics. Now, if you're not intervening, you can't measure those metrics in the unobserved arm directly. But this is really the beginning of what I think is going to be a long series of studies as we figure out how, both at the AHA and in science and in clinical medicine, we start using these extended networks to get our message across.
Hi, this is Mark Link and Dr. Turakhia, concluding our discussion of 2 of the 4 trials that were discussed at this special session at the AHA, Trials and Cardiovascular Registries. Thank you.
Thank you.